All right, everybody, we are live on YouTube. It is another Friday edition of Coffee and Celtics. We have the two best words in sports, a game 7 for the NBA Finals. We're going to talk a little bit about game 6, look ahead to game 7 on Sunday night. One more game for you NBA fanatics out there like us. We got one more to hold on to before we hit the offseason. Speaking of the offseason, we've got some Jake Fisher rumors here coming in about Drew Holiday. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then somehow, and I don't know why the NBA sets up their calendar this way, but the NBA draft is Wednesday night. In case you guys didn't know, because it's kind of caught me off guard in about the last couple of days here. So it's now 2 nights, which I didn't know until last night as well. Round 1, Wednesday, Celtics hold the 28th pick. Round 2, Thursday night, Celtics hold the 32nd pick. Greg and I, we're completely aloof when it comes to the draft. We're not college basketball guys, so we're not going to bullshit you. We're going to bring in somebody that's been putting in the work, been grinding the tape. We called on our guy, Wayne Spooney. Spooney is here from First to the Floor. We got ourselves a hell of a coffee in Celtics. If you guys are live on the chat, get your questions going now. Otherwise, you know the deal. Scream with envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy, a Friday Coffee and Celtics edition, which of course you know is brought to you by Wood Island Media, entertainment company based in LA with roots in Boston. Shout out to our friends at Wood Island Media. As always, this is your boy Will. We're checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Menakis. Greg, happy pre-game 7 to you, my friend.
Dude, welcome to another episode of Podcasters in Chairs Drinking Coffee. I'm excited. I'm excited for this.
Zach Galifianakis, watch out. We're coming. This is going to be the new concept that takes off. And as I mentioned at the top, we got to get into the NBA draft because it has really snuck up on us here, riding right on the coattails of the NBA Finals. Wednesday night is round 1. And so in order for us to be able to feel somewhat educated, we've gone ahead and tagged in our guy, Spooney, from the First to the Floor podcast. Spooney, thanks for being here, man.
Gentlemen, happy to be here. Happy to join you guys for a little Celtics, little coffee, little NBA draft talk. Off the top, I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude who doesn't have a lot of hobbies or friends. So I have done a lot of research into these guys, but I'm not Sam Vecini. I'm not Kevin O'Connor. So I do my best. I watch the tape and I draw my conclusions. So I prepared for my opinions to be very, very wrong this time next year. I'm just saying that off the top, but otherwise, let's do it.
Let me say this. Sam Vecini, I don't know if you've seen this, Greg. He has a draft guide that might be 300 pages.
Yes.
I don't know if Sam Vecini has any friends. He might have less friends than anybody. To be able to put that type of depth together, listen, shout out to Sam. Would love to have him on the podcast here to talk about it because I can't read that thing. I pulled it up last night and I was like, this isn't gonna happen. It's like 1 a.m. with a crying baby over my shoulder. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to wait and see what Spooney's thoughts are. But before we get to the draft, let's talk a little bit about Thunder Pacers here. And Spooney, Greg and I have been talking about this series as it's been going on. Greg's been for a while. He claims I disrespect the Pacers. Or
you do.
I don't
you have no respect. You have
enough.
No respect for the Pacers.
That is not the truth. That is not the truth. They played a 60-win team, and I picked the other team. They played a team that beat a team that I thought was going to, no doubt, be in the finals, the Celtics. I picked against them. And now they're playing another 60-plus win team, and I picked against them, which Greg also picked against them, just for the record. But this series has been awesome. This has been an awesome series. The Pacers smoked the Thunder last night. I don't even want to direct you with a certain question here. I just want your unbridled thoughts. Like, what jumps to your mind as you're watching this series, either about these teams or maybe something bigger picture?
Okay, so the one thing I got right in this entire playoffs was Pacers Knicks. I thought the Pacers were going to handle the Knicks pretty well. I also picked Cleveland over them, obviously. Who didn't? But I just thought the Knicks were complete frauds. And on our show on First to the Floor, we have been all in on this Pacers run. I mean, they're really fun. They're young. They've got athletes everywhere. Obi Toppin is all of a sudden good at basketball, which I was like totally out on Obi Toppin, and I look like a complete
Him
moron.
hitting threes has blown my mind. I didn't
Yeah.
know where that. I haven't been locked into the Pacers enough. The fact that he can have games where he hits 3-4 threes, I didn't know that was a new thing with Obi Toppin.
Seems like he doesn't miss.
Yeah,
Crazy.
he's got a great quick release too, by the way. Like his quick release is really good.
Yeah, and he gets a little elevation. Like it's not like a complete set shot like you see with some of these taller dudes. So he's releasing the ball from like 8 feet in the air. So it's totally unblockable too.
It's like if Sean Marion had learned how to shoot.
Yeah, he didn't flick it from his belly button.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So they've been awesome and super fun. I thought OKC was winning this series in 5 or 6. I'm really in 5 if I had to bet money on it. So it going 7's amazing. And one thing I've been really thinking about is like, what is Pascal Siakam? Because he was like in these Tatum conversations, which was comical and laughable. But like now that we're looking back, he's obviously not a Tatum level top 5-ish all NBA first team type player, but he's about to be the second best player on one team that won the title in 2019 with Toronto. And then whatever happens in game 7, this is a massive, massive success for the Indiana Pacers. Like there's just no other way around it. Even if they lose in games, even if they get blown out in game 7, this is a huge, huge season for them. And like Siakam has probably been their most consistent player. If you look from a two-way perspective, where he like the way he generates easy points for them by flying in transition and the way he covers all the holes defensively. It's like every time there's a drive, all of a sudden Pascal Siakam is just there. It's like he teleports to cover up. And like Halliburton's a bad defender. You need a guy like that although Halliburton's kind of played pretty well defensively, I think, for him this series. But you need a guy like Siakam who can just cover basically the entire defensive end of the court. So like I'm kind of readjusting like where I Siakam in the hierarchy in the NBA generally, which is kind of a weird thing to draw from this series, but it's just what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, I think with Siakam, a couple of years ago, we had Esparahini on when Siakam was on the Raptors, and there was the whole Jaylen Brown versus Siakam like rivalry dating back to the bubble. And we were like very dismissive of Pascal, and S was telling us like, "Hey, Siakam and Jaylen Brown are like on the same level, and Siakam might be a better player than Jaylen Brown." And we were just like, "Dude, get out of here!" Like Siakam is in the 30s to 40s, Jaylen is like 15 to 25 range. They're not the same. And as we've watched Siakam over the last couple of years, and especially when you juxtapose Jaylen Brown's performances against the Thunder, right, where he struggled against a team like that, and then you see Siakam, and I'm not saying Jaylen would have struggled in this finals against the Thunder, but history shows us that he does. And I think with Siakam, the fact that he's a matchup nightmare on the other end as well. His defense is one thing, but offensively, you just throw the ball on the block and it doesn't matter who's covering him. He's going to go to work. He's going to get his shot off. He's not turning the ball over quite as much as I kind of thought he would in this series. His handle's loose. It's goofy. It's unorthodox, but it works, right? And that's kind of Pascal Siakam in a nutshell. So I think with him, that is a really interesting thing, because I was actually thinking last night watching the game, like, if the Pacers somehow pull this off, who's the MVP of the series? It's probably not Halliburton. It's Siakam, or is it TJ McConnell? Like, honestly,
Nembhard.
Nembhard. Like it's the Iguodala covering LeBron back in the day, Nembhard covering SGA, and he's done a damn good job on SGA as well. So TJ's been great as well. I'm kind of having to readjust what he is in my brain as well, because Pacers fans love him. He's getting TJ chance the moment he checks into a game. He's the most impactful bench player in the series. It's him or Caruso. I think he's outplayed Caruso in the series, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, the impactful TJ McConnell minutes are crazy. I know when they were playing the Knicks, Spooney, we had one of our friends on here, our buddy Liptak, who's a big Knicks fan, who was filling in for me for a little bit during that series. And I told him, be ready for the moment that TJ McConnell just drives you nuts. Because even in that 4-game sweep last year, there's moments where it's like, okay, hold on. Let's hit the brakes here. Is TJ McConnell going to swing this game? And he's swinging an NBA Finals. Like, that is something that's really hard to comprehend, but he has been unbelievable. And I think the thing that's been most impressive watching TJ McConnell is you think of just, he fits all of the scrappy white guy stereotypes of a undersized guard. But it's the ability, especially against this defense, that he's had to get in the lane. He gets in the lane just seemingly whenever he wants
Dude,
to.
I don't understand it, Will. We talked about it on a recent pod, Spoons. I'm interested to get your opinion. The fact that TJ will just fly up the court, right? And he's on the right side of the court, and he's threatening a dribble handoff, right, in transition with like a little pistol action. And every single time when he does that little hesitation and he push crosses over to the middle, there's nobody there. He gets to the middle anytime he wants. Like, that's what TJ McConnell does. He's going to figure out a way to get middle, and then he's going to shoot his little 10-foot fadeaway jumper. Like, that's what he does.
I know. And like sometimes he'll like bail out Pat. He's not like a great playmaker, even though he had 6 assists last night. But the way he just compromises your defense, and he's so quick. Like, I think people underestimate, like, you look at him, he looks like an accountant. Like, but he is like legitimately, his quick twitch and first step are really, really fast. And I think like the pistol action, any of that stuff, like the drag screens and semi-transition, any of that stuff, Indiana just puts so much pressure on you, because while that's going on, you also got to worry about Obi Toppin flying down the court, or Siakam flying down the court, or Miles Turner trailing for a 3. And it's like the perfect team for TJ McConnell, because he can take advantage of like the defense's mind kind of being elsewhere. And it's like, all of a sudden he's in the lane. And you're right, man. Like, that little fadeaway drives me nuts. I want Pritchard to learn that fadeaway. And he kind of started to do it a little bit this year, because it's such a weapon. He's missed it like 5 times this series. I'm convinced. It's like once a game he misses it, and otherwise it's complete money. So I just think people kind of underestimate him a little bit, and just the pace and speed at which he plays perfectly into what's around him on this Pacers team. And they put just so much pressure on your defense in semi-transition and transition. And McConnell, especially, who's always looking downhill, always looking forward, always looking to go. That like, it's just really, really hard to guard. And we're seeing maybe the best defense since like the 04 Pistons. I mean, it's up. 2022 Celtics are up there too, but like, this is one of the best defenses of the modern era, and they're even having trouble with it. That's how tough this Pacers team is to guard. And like, McConnell's just a huge part of that. And I always say there is benefit to dudes who just play super, super hard every second they are out there. Like, I'm not alone. Like, that's not like, oh,
no,
wow,
that's been a big thing the last couple of days, that's been like, hey, what's their superpower? They just play fucking really hard the entire time, and they have a collection of guys that are built into doing that. And it seems elementary. It seems almost like it's too simple, but there's some truth to it, right? We're watching it play out right now. Like, obviously there's skill, size, athleticism, but some of it is just like, we're going to play relentlessly hard for 48 minutes, and it's just really hard to deal with. So, having said that, Greg, you talk about respect. Game 7. Here's your chance to finally stand on business. Would you like to predict a winner?
I think the Thunder are going to win Game 7, but I think it's just home court advantage. Home court advantage. The Thunder have not been a good road team in these playoffs, and they've been great at home, right? And I think that they're going to win this game. I hope it's not a blowout. I really thought Game 6 was going to be a little bit more competitive than it was.
Yeah.
I hope we get a Game 7 that isn't one of those Game 7s there where it's just like this is just like, these guys are exhausted. First of all, like, both teams are so tired. The fact that the Pacers were able to get some rest for their guys, and the Thunder not playing anybody in the fourth quarter and all that stuff, like, hopefully everyone is good to go. Halliburton played 23 minutes in Game 6, so I think that he looked great too. Like, he didn't look like his calf was bothering him at all. So
dude, that play with him and Siakam, where he makes the steal and then has the pass to the dunk, that's an all-time highlight. Like, that was unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was phenomenal stuff. So I'm gonna go Thunder. I know I've said, I've been giving you shit all playoffs, but the Pacers, man, they're great. They're great, but to beat the Thunder in OKC, that would even surpass what I have expected.
Yeah, Spooney, what do you got for Game 7?
Yeah, so I have like no backbone. I'm a complete like sucker for for my biases. So I basically have been picking whoever won the last game to win the next game, and I'm not going to stop. Let's go Pacers in 7. Why not? That's the fun. But rationally, I agree with Greg. I think OKC is the better team, and they're just a different level at home. But screw it, give me Pacers in 7. Why not? It'll be more fun to cheer for.
100%. That's the thing. Like, I found myself being a Pacers fan. Like, I'm rooting. Like, anytime something happens, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't plan for this to happen, but I have become a Pacers fan in the series. So I'm with you. My heart says the Pacers. Head still says that the Thunder are going to win. And it's funny. This is kind of when the Celtics played the Knicks. This is what I thought the differentiator was. Like, oh, hey, the Celtics can blow out the Knicks. The Knicks have to play perfect to beat us 4 times. Turns out not to be the case when you just blow a bunch of 20-point leads and injuries happen and all that other stuff. But that's kind of where I'm at with this, is that, like, the Thunder can play a B+ game and still win a game, as they have B+B game. Like, the Pacers still need to really play close to an A+ game to win, and especially in a game 7 on the road. So that'll be tough, but Sunday night, that'll be fun. Love a game 7. Before we get to the draft coverage here, I did want to hit quickly. We had both Shams and then Jake Fisher kind of giving us a little bit of tidbits or a little bit of insight into the Celtics offseason. Shams continuing to just make very obvious statements of things that everyone knows are true and claims that they're news. I don't really understand what the point of that is. So we'll skip over that. Yes, we know the Celtics are retooling. Yes, we know the taxes and second apron is an issue. Jake Fisher, a little bit more interesting of a note, that on the Drew Holiday front, there does appear to be 3 main teams that are interested. The Mavs, who we've talked about heavily on this podcast as a team that makes a lot of sense. Clippers, who we have talked a little bit about, not quite as much, but definitely been a team that we've mentioned. And then the Kings, who came out in a rumor several weeks ago, and I don't know what the fuck the Kings are doing, which cool, they're in the mix.
Neither do they.
yeah. There's been a couple teams where we're going through these mock trades, as I'm sure you guys are, trying to figure out what the Celtics offseason looks like. And it's like, well, let's throw the Kings are here, let's throw the Bulls in here, because we don't really know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They could just randomly be in this trade, because why not? That's what these organizations have done. But Spooney, I want to ask you here, as we look at the Celtics offseason, and this is all going to kind of bleed into our draft preview here in a minute. We know what needs to be done. We don't need to go through all those bullet points with you. You guys have been hammering that on the First of the Floor podcast as well. Do you have a favorite mock trade or option of how this offseason plays out that you're really hoping ends up being the actual case?
So, I mean, how I hope it turns out is ownership's like, who cares about the tax? Let's just trade Drew Holiday for the same salary number, or KP for the same salary number, and get real talent back. That obviously is not realistic. So I think for me, the Dallas one, everybody's talked about it. Like, I'm not breaking news here, but I think Drew Holiday for Gafford, and then you either route PJ Washington to a third team, or you get PJ Washington and route Gafford to a third team. And I think part of that, which one we would rather have, probably depends on what happens with Luke Cornett and Al Horford. But if one of those guys are gone, we really need a center, because you can't rely on KP, and you're presuming KP is going to get salary dumped in some capacity. So to me, like, both of those guys have proved they can be important pieces to finals teams. If we route one of them to a third team, it saves us like 12, 13, 14 million dollars, depending on which one it is. So like, give me Drew for PJ Washington is a downgrade, but when you're also saving money, I think it's like about as good as you can really hope. Now, there's trades I've seen out there with the Kings where it's like DeRozan and Keon Ellis. I love that. That would be awesome. Not because of DeRozan, because I really like Keon Ellis, especially
good clarification. I was
Well, let's not get crazy here, but DeRozan might be fun if we're tanking next year, but that doesn't save us any money. So, like, are we going to try and send DeRozan to the Nets, and then we're all of a sudden paying like 2 firsts to get off DeRozan's it just doesn't make sense to me. So to me, it seems like pretty easy, because both of those Dallas is like clearly wants Drew. So that means they're willing to give up positive value for Drew Holiday, and they've got Davis. They're now going to have Cooper Flag. All of a sudden that rotation's getting pretty tight with a lot of talent. So maybe turn 2 guys into 1. That's an upgrade short term for them. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't trade for Drew Holiday at 37 on that contract, but they clearly are interested in it. So I think Gafford would be kind of a home run as a long-term centerpiece. But if we keep Luke, we keep Al. I've always loved PJ Washington. He's a 6'8" guy who can defend a little bit and shoot threes. You can always use a dude like that on decent money.
Yeah, I agree completely. I love the PJ and Gafford. Even if like we didn't salary dump one of them, I don't know how much money that would actually save us. I don't have those contracts right now.
It's like nothing basically if we take the two of them. It's like a $2 million difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so we probably would have to do it. But I mean, if that was the route that we ended up going and keeping both of those guys, I actually don't hate that. I like both
awesome.
those players.
Yeah.
But they're both really, I think, instrumental to a good defense, right? They're switchable, they're physical. I think they would adjust the Celtics general like defensive malaise that can happen with this team. So I think that their dog mentality, to boil it down, would be very welcome in Boston. Just to have a couple of tough dudes. The Clippers idea that you threw out there, Will, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know it had like Derek Jones maybe coming back to the
It was
Celtics.
basically like it was like Derek Jones and Bogdanovich, something to that effect. Was what came back.
I kind of like that deal as well. I love Derek Jones. I think he's one of the best wing defenders, point of attack defenders in basketball. And then Bogdanovich works with Missoula, so I think that's another good option to explore there.
Yeah, I'm with you, Spooney. I don't understand why the Kings would want this contract. Like the Mavs and Clippers are two teams that, because I think this contract, we've been on this where I think this contract, if you're a good GM, you'd have to at least get a pick to take this on. As good as Drew Holiday is, unless you're that close, and for the Mavs and who have put themselves on this artificial timeline for whatever Nico Harrison reason, like they're now one of the teams that make sense. Clippers make sense, with their older kind of players that are all lining up on similar contracts. So you're going to be in this position anyway. So why not get a guy that could be, even if he's a little bit overpaid at this point in his career, he can be your Caruso that you've seen in this playoffs is something I said, last episode. So yeah, I think ultimately the best return is PJ Washington. I'm a big PJ Washington fan. I think that's the type of guy. Like when's the last time the Celtics had a guy like PJ Washington? That's kind of that power forward, could theoretically be, small ball center, especially if he stays when Tatum comes back and you have him and Tatum, kind of both out there. Like when have they had that 6'9", 6'10" athletic wing off the bench, right? That's kind of he's not quite a full two-way guy, but is a, more or less a two-way guy from a role player perspective, right? Like there really hasn't been that guy. And so I think that's the ultimate return. If we somehow can pull off PJ Washington and dumping, 10 to 15 million, that's without giving up real draft capital, big time win for Brad Stevens. So with that report, that's kind of what I'm eyeing as far as the Celtics in that trade market. Let's start swinging this towards the draft pendulum here. Again, Wednesday night, round one of the draft. Celtics have the 28th pick somehow. I don't know how this has snuck up on us, but it is here. So we're going to talk about this. But I want to set the scene first before we get into some specific players. And Spooney, I know you have a couple of profiles of specific guys that are over on the First to the Floor YouTube page. If you guys haven't checked those out, make sure you hit that up after this. But let's start here, Spooney, with the current quote-unquote prospects that are on the Celtics roster, because I think that matters as far as what you're looking to draft, or who you're looking to draft, I should say. And let's limit this particular conversation to the last two meaningful draft picks of the Celtics, and that's going to be Baylor Shireman last year and then Jordan Walsh the year before. Where are you at right now on those guys starting next year, being able to play meaningful rotation minutes? And by meaningful, I mean at least 10 to 15 minutes on a regular basis. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong here, First to the Floor, I feel like you guys are much higher on Jordan Walsh than the average podcast. And I don't know if that's just because the Australian guys like the way Walshy sounds, but I'm curious to know where you guys are at.
That's a big part of it. Definitely. No, I think Walsh, he was like Brad's first draft pick, if I recall. So it's kind of just a meme and a joke for us at this point. We obviously want to see him be successful, but I don't think any of us would sit here and be like, we should be making decisions based on like Jordan Walsh's potential future on the Celtics. So, we do love Walshy, but I think next year's a make or break year for Jordan Walsh. He's going to have minutes. Tatum's hurt. There's going to be minutes available for him. So he really needs to show something, because I felt like at times early on last year, the game started to slow down for him a little bit. And then when he got minutes later in the season, I thought he kind of lost that and lost a lot of confidence. And I wonder if part of the reason he lost confidence is because Baylor Shireman came in and just started gunning and played like really well. I was a not a Baylor fan. I think there's a minimum level of athleticism you need to have to be an NBA player. I did not think Baylor Shireman had that minimum level. And then I went to my one game a year. I flew home. It was the Nets game that Tatum didn't play, and Shireman hit like 5 threes right in my eyeball. And so, like, all right, I'm on the bandwagon now. I do have serious concerns about Shireman's ability to play defense, especially in the playoffs. So I think Walsh has more potential to be like a higher level playoff style player. I think Baylor is much closer to being a legitimate 82 game contributor. And I just think the chance of Walsh getting there is decreasing every sort of minute here. But I think Walsh is still considerably younger than Shireman. So I will say, while I like Walsh's potential, and I think Baylor will be like a solid role player in the NBA, I wouldn't let either of them impact the pick you're taking in this upcoming draft. I would take the best guy available, and if that guy is a wing, so be it.
Yeah, with Shireman, what's like a comp for him? Like a physical Luke Kennard?
I like that one a lot. Like shorter Joe Ingles. And then that brings up the question is like, if Joe Ingles isn't 6'9", how good is he really? Like if he can't play the 4,
Joe Ingles, but from Southie is basically kind of like
yeah.
what we're thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. So I like more physical Luke Kennard because I think Joe's size was just such an important facet of how he played the game. So I do think Kennard's just like a kind of underrated ball handler and guy who could run the pick and roll legitimately, had just more pop off the bounce that I'm not sure Shireman will ever have. But I think the fact that we're having trouble kind of coming up with comps speaks to he's kind of a unique player. Like the passing vision and the passing ability is real, but I also don't think he really has the ability to get himself into positions where he can use it all that much. I still don't trust his shot, but that's just kind of a me thing, just because it looks really weird. And I think it's part of the lefty stuff. Just look, they all have weird jump shots, the lefties, for some reason. So, but I like sort of the Luke Kennard, like the burly man's Luke Kennard, the MMA fighter Luke Kennard.
Yeah. And then for Walsh, I always compare just like his body type and the way he moves. I always like try to make comparisons to the way people move. I always thought he moved like Andre Iguodala. He's nowhere near the athlete Iguodala was. He does have some of the measurables, like with the crazy wingspan and everything. I think he has some pretty solid defensive instincts. I don't know. I just don't see it with him long term. Like I would be really surprised if he ended up being a meaningful contributor for the Celtics. I've tried to convince myself that he could be that guy, but I just don't see it, man. He is young, to Will's point though. Shireman was drafted as a like ready to play prospect, and Walsh was drafted as a project. So hopefully, I don't want to give up on a guy after 2 years in the league, especially when we were trying to win a championship and we were not prioritizing his development. So hopefully that is a silver lining that comes out of this season, is one or both of those guys. Could be an Aaron Nesmith. One or both of those guys ends up being something that we can either flip for something else or becomes part of the rotation when Tatum gets back.
Yeah, it's just tough with Jordan Walsh because I don't think there's anything you can grab onto that you're like, oh, remember that one game or this moment. Like there's just been nothing. Like, and you got to like really, really like try to convince yourself before even like putting that out into the world that you really saw something, because there just really isn't. Whereas at least with Shireman, and like he is older, you have that run like middle to end of last year where you look at that. And to be honest, Spooney, I think one of the things that's almost a guarantee for me in this offseason is like Sam Hauser should have his house on Zillow. Like I think it's just ready made for Shireman to he plays different than Sam Hauser, obviously, but I think he's ready made to save you some money from like 10 million to 3 million if you can just dump Sam. And I think they're waiting to see if Sam can be, someone they can put into a 3-team deal, put him into cap space, help facilitate something without that's just an easy way for them to cut 7, 8, maybe all 10 million of Sam's contract. And so I think Shireman's gonna slide right into it. And one of the things that I think he does bring that there isn't really have that I am enjoying watching in this NBA Finals, specifically from the Pacers, is he has a little bit of randomness to him, right? Like the Celtics are just very predictable. Like Shireman has a little bit of like, oh shit, is he going to pretend like he's in like a high school quarterback again and just throw a full court right now? Like he's got a little bit of like he's almost too confident. It's like, dude, you are 24 and you're acting like you're this hot shot like 19 years back, which is cool. Like I think the Celtics need a little bit of that injected into them. So I'm kind of ready for the Baylor Shireman experience. And yeah, I hope Jordan Walsh gets a chance to show something, but there just hasn't been much there yet.
Will,
Before we start getting into
I
go
got
ahead, Greg.
something real quick because I saw a comment in the chat comparing Shireman to Kyle Korver, and I think Sam Hauser is more of a Korver analog there. Shireman's not a movement shooter. Shireman is a spot up shooter. He has like terrible mechanics, to Spooney's point, like off of like pin downs and stuff like that. It does not look good. So Shireman is a very different type of player than Hauser. So like if you're getting Sam out of there, contract makes sense to get him out of there. They're not going to be running the same actions for Shireman just flipped for a lefty. It's just not going to happen. He's like not that type of shooter, in my opinion. I may be proven wrong on that, but I think right now he has a lot of work to do there. And Will, before we move into the prospects, I want to talk just real quick. Each of us name one failed draft pick from the past. Favorite failed draft pick of the Celtics from the past.
Oh, I've got mine real quick, so I can give you a second to think here, Spoony. And this is, again, used to be really into college basketball, started fading out maybe about like a decade or so ago. And so I get easily fooled by what happens in March Madness. And when the Celtics drafted RJ Hunter, I was all in.
Oh.
I thought RJ Hunter was going to be awesome. I think it might have been the same year they had Terry Rozier. They had like 14 and 28. And I honestly thought the two of them were going to be flipped as far as picks. Like I thought Hunter was more like a borderline, lottery prospect. Rozier towards the back end. He was obviously the better pick out of the two. But I was like, all right, this is going to be the play. And he was, I think, out of the league by like year 3. So RJ Hunter is the guy I always think about being fooled by watching March Madness and then being excited that my team picked a player.
Yeah, I have two.
Okay.
One is the exact same thing where he was just completely electric in March Madness, and that's Carson Edwards. Like he's pulling up, he looked like Steph Curry, and I was like, how can this guy fail? Like maybe he won't be a plus defender, but at the very least, he's going to be a great bench scorer. I don't know if you guys remember Jawan Johnson.
Yeah,
I was convinced we were drafting the next. Yeah, from Purdue. Yeah. I was like, we got the next KG. Look at this guy, 6'10". He moves. He can put it on the floor. Maybe he'll shoot it a little bit. He was awful. He's maybe one of the worst Celtics draft picks of all time. Like I don't even know if he like played beyond 2 years.
Do you want to know what's funny, Spoony? Is I don't remember if we drafted him the same year or the year before, a year after, but his teammate at Purdue, E'Twaun Moore, who we also drafted, he didn't work out with the Celtics. We ended up having like a sneaky career where he like popped up with the Pelicans again, and he was like
he got a second contract.
Yeah, he was popping around for a little bit, and I was like, wait, this is the same E'Twaun Moore that we drafted and just didn't do anything. Like he became like a real guy. That was, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if they were the same draft, but it was like interesting that we had those two teammates and neither worked out, at least in a Celtics uniform.
I believe it was the same draft because he was like pick 55 or something like that. Yeah. So each one's up there for one of the best 55th picks of all time or wherever he went. It's like he played like 8-9 years. Like that's solid for a late second rounder. But Juwan, he let me down so hard, man. That's when I was like, man, I got to look into this stuff a little more closely, not get my hopes up.
We got a couple more in the chat.
Who do you got here?
Cool Genuine Phil says James Young. We've got A. Dot says Lester Hudson. My go-to is
Lester Hudson's a pull. Shout out to A. Dot. Yeah. Lester Hudson's a pull.
That is a pull. Kedrick Brown is always my go-to because I loved Kedrick, right? That was same draft or around the same time as Joe Johnson. I think it was the same draft, right?
Yep.
And we decided, we decided to move Joe Johnson instead of Kedrick Brown. And Kedrick Brown is just like such a good representation of how the NBA has changed over the years, where he had no basketball skills. He was just an athlete. And now like that guy wouldn't even get looked at in today's, pace and space game. Like Kedrick Brown would not be. He was like still people trying to convince themselves like the Michael Jordan archetype could work. But like Michael Jordan had the ultimate bag and Kedrick Brown could jump. I remember like anytime anytime Kedrick Brown had a breakaway, it was the most exciting thing in the world. But he only had like 3. From what I remember, like he had 3 breakaway dunks in his career, and Tommy Heinsohn used to lose his shit every time he did. But Kedrick Brown, Jerome Moiso, I think his name.
Someone dropped like Joe Forte in the chat. That was a good one as well.
That was the same draft. That was Joe Johnson, Kedrick Brown, and Joe Forte.
I remember we had 3 picks. We whiffed on them all. That was a rough era of
and Forte. I think Forte was Red's last pick, which wasn't great. I mean, Greg, is there anybody else we're missing?
Well, hold on. Let me jump in here real quick, because you hit on something that I wanted to get to here, and I want to make sure that we got enough time to get into a few actual prospects here. But you mentioned like Kedrick Brown was just an athlete, right? So Celtics are picking here 28 and 32. There's been rumors that Brad might try to trade up, but Greg, tell me, because we don't know the players as well. So I want to ask you, what are the skill sets that you think the Celtics need to target in this draft?
I think they need
prototype or
profile. I think they need dudes that will play hard, that are great athletes, and that understand how to move without the basketball. I don't want to see so much stationary offense out of the Celtics, where guys are kind of just chess pieces that just are literally stationary while one other piece moves, right? I want to see like the board moving at all different times. So I want guys that have size, because that's an obvious need with the Celtics. We need a little bit more size. Guys that, can run some DHO as like the guy who grabbed the ball and actually hands it off to a guard. People that understand how to short roll, and then people who understand maybe how to play the dunker spot. I don't think we necessarily, I would love to have some guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. I just don't know they're available at picks 28 and 32. So as long as you have like 2 off-ball skill sets, whether that's like a shooting thing or a movement thing, or that's a screening and a cutting thing, I think we need that type of player that also has the measurables, 6'6" to 6'9" wing type.
All right. With that being said, Spooney, let's start getting into some names here that we should be looking out for on Wednesday and Thursday. 2 nights now is the NBA draft. So let's start here with, give us kind of 1 or 2 guys that are like pie in the sky, like Brad's going for it. Like, we know he's not trading into like the top 10, but maybe he can package something, or it's part of it. And this is part of why we started talking about Drew Holiday and KP and all this other stuff. Like, it could all come to culmination this week in bigger packages. So who are some guys that maybe are a little bit out of that 28 to 32 range, but are also potentially within reason if Brad Stevens is really deciding that this is a move he wants to make? Who are some guys that you're looking at?
Yeah, and also we talked about dumping Hauser for salary relief. Like, Hauser's worth a mid-first, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think that's another pathway we could get sort of into that super late lottery, like that mid-teens level. And there are 2 names there that I think would be just absolutely home runs. One is a wing, and it's Cedric Coward. Problem with Coward,
he's the hot name right now, by the way. I feel like I heard his name on like multiple podcasts this week.
Yeah. So Coward's one of those dudes where like all the draft nerds were into it. And I went into it being like, I'm going to find out what's wrong with this guy and be really against drafting him, just because I'm just an antagonist. I'm just a bad person. And then I watched the clips and I'm like, holy crap. Like, this dude is awesome, right? 6'6", 6'7" with shoes, 7'2" wingspan. So like prototypical 3-4-ish size. He's a little weak. So I don't think he's really a guard up guy right now, but I think with his frame, he can absolutely add weight and be a dude who can switch 1 through 4. But what comes down for Coward is that he is just elite efficiency at all 3 levels. And primarily it starts with his jumper. His jumper is pure. His jumper is smooth. He's an absolute knockdown, catch and shoot guy. And he loves the like pump fake, closeout goes by him, take 1 dribble, sidestep 3, and he absolutely buries those. They posted him up against small guards a lot when he was at Washington State and at Eastern Washington the year before. And he just has shown the ability to finish in the mid-range and get all the way to the rim. The problem is he played 6 games last year, and he played 1 Power 4 team, and it was Iowa, and he was 3 for 10, and he was awful. So he's been kind of the big fish in a small pond with a lot of these numbers, but He had a 71% true shooting percentage last year, and it was not much lower. It was like high 60s the year before when he played a full season. His 2-point percentage, I mean, it's like up over 70% from two, and he's been right around 40% his entire college career. 89.5% from the line 2 years ago, 83.9 in 6 games last year. Like, there is no doubt Cedric Coward will walk into the NBA and be a plus shooter and probably an elite shooter. And then defensively, he's got the length. Like, he's not a bad defensive player. I think if he puts on some strength, he could be and has the chance to be a legitimate plus defender at the NBA level. And he can put it on the floor. He can drive a closeout. He was like ball handling a lot and running pick and roll in college. I do not see that in his game at the NBA level. His handle's pretty loose. He doesn't have a ton of wiggle with it, but he's one of those dudes that can use the threat of his jump shot to get himself downhill. And he's enough of a decision maker and finisher that I think he can punish defenses with that. So Coward is like number one on my board. So unfortunately, I had no choice but to agree with the draft nerds. They were right.
Okay, I'm watching highlights of him right now as you're talking. I'm basic. Who's your comparison for Coward?
Okay, so it's tough, but like Desmond Bane, like a longer Desmond Bane, just like elite shooter. Like, Bane doesn't have a amazing quick twitch first step. I think Bane can do a little bit more playmaking than Coward, but I think Coward will be a better defender and is just bigger than Desmond Bane. So he kind of makes up for the value with that. But the way they use the threat of the shot to get themselves downhill, get themselves into the mid range, and Bane to play make a little bit is really similar to me. And Bane stepped in and was like immediately a 40% shooter, one of the best shooters in the NBA. I suspect Coward will be that. I think Bane, people thought he was going to be a better defender coming out of the draft than he is. So I do think
T-Rex arms.
I know, man. Yeah, he's got my wingspan. That's brutal, buddy. I'm sorry, Desmond. But I suspect Coward has a real chance to be a better defender than Desmond Bane too. But his offense does kind of remind me of Bane because of the jump shot. It kind of all starts with the jump shot.
Who's the other guy that you said there were two guys that are kind of like the pie in the sky? Who's the second guy?
Okay. Thomas Sorber. He is
out of Georgetown.
Freshman center. He's 6'8.5", 6'9", or he's 6'9", I think, barefoot, 7 foot wings. 7'6" wingspan. So he's kind of built like Rob Williams, who had like the short neck. So he was only 6'8", but with his wingspan, he actually defended like a 7-footer. Very similar with Sorber, but he is a beefy dude. He's 255. He is like extremely strong, and he's only 19. And I think for Sorber, like Coward's a 22-year-old. He was a senior. Sorber's a freshman center. But what I love so much about Sorber, NBA ready body. He's going to be super strong. Is his processing of the game and his passing in the short roll and his ability to like take 2 dribbles and finish out of the short roll. I think he's one of the best short roll prospects in this draft. And he's reading defenses at an extraordinary high level and making passes at an extraordinary high level. And he's 19 years old, right? So you only expect that his ability to process the game, and he processes really quick and he makes decisions really quick. He sets really damn good screens, and he's like a maestro in the handoff game. Like, he's just really comfortable with the ball in his hands when he's making those decisions, like out of the high post and the handoff and stuff like that. Philip Hart isn't Sorber projected at 12-15. This is about if we trade up. These are 2 guys we will absolutely have to trade up for. And like defensively, I think he'll be a rim protector, drop big, which has its limitations. I don't see any potential he will ever be able to switch, but he's going to be a plus rebounder. And I think a very solid to good, with potential to be elite rim protector. And I just love, he's like Cornette on steroids offensively, if it works out for him.
I got to say real quick, there's been a lot of Cornette comps that I've seen going around in different draft guides. I love that that's become like a new comp for people. And that does actually kind of get me to a question that I wanted to bring up, which will start to bring us to more like the realistic, like we don't move, we keep in 28 and 32. And, you know, there's a chance, you like you mentioned earlier in the podcast here, Spooney, like we have 2 7'2" and above guys right now. We might lose both of them this offseason, depending on on how things shake out. And one of the things that Greg and I have talked a bunch about is sometimes it's just nice to be big for the sake of being big. So I really enjoy just having the option to always have a 7+ footer. And, especially with what the Australians did with Luke Cornett, who I can't remember anyone else that like their biggest improvement has been their athleticism, right? Like he's had the IQ, had the skills, and they improved his athleticism in a way that I just am not super familiar with the top of my head to think about other examples. So I want to talk about two specific guys that I've seen mocked in different ways to the Celtics. One is a guy that I mentioned to you when we were setting this up, was Ryan Kalkbrenner out of Creighton, who's real big and was one of the guys. Once again, saw him during March Madness, didn't blow me away, but thought about, hey, that could be a 7-foot replacement for the Celtics. And then a guy that I wasn't familiar with until I watched your breakdown video, and now I 100% prefer him as an option to Kalkbrenner, and that's going to be Maxime Reynaud. Am I saying Reynaud? I know he's French, so correct me if I'm doing that incorrectly here. But both of these guys, 7+ foot. Both have been mocked. Maxime was mocked to the Celtics on the Ringer draft. Kalkbrenner, one of the CBS Sports mock drafts, has him at 28 to the Celtics. Talk to me a little bit about these guys as potential options.
Yeah, I lean towards Reynaud. I don't know, man. I don't speak French. I used to know a little Spanish. That's all I got. Max, I lean towards him just because I think he's more versatile. So he shot it at 35% from three. I really think he's going to be able to at least be a dude you kind of have to guard out there. And Kalkbrenner flashed a little bit of 3-point shooting, 34% last year. I don't really totally believe in that he's going to be a shooter. Like he might be a Valanciunas shooter where its teams are like, all right, buddy, you're going to make, maybe you shoot 36% on those, but you take one a game. Like we don't really care. Whereas I think Reno has a chance to actually be a Brook Lopez or Miles Turner. Miles Turner is probably the better comp level of shooter, and Reno can like pump fake and drive a closeout and make a decision. And he has a lot of like the Luke Cornett, like rescreen, handoff, short roll, make the decision, take a couple dribbles, get to the rim, which like Cornett can't even really do that. I just think he's a really high level thinker of the game offensively, not at the Sorber level, but I think more than Kalkbrenner. The thing about Kalkbrenner is 7'1", 7'6" wingspan, third highest standing reach at the combine. He's just huge. Like he's just absolutely massive. And like Reynaud's a little like thin, like he's not spindly KP style, but I think there's guys in the NBA who will be able to push him around. Nobody's pushing around Ryan Kalkbrenner. And he's like an elite high level rim protector who is like a roll man. He's just the most boring prospect in the draft, but I see like, I just think Kalkbrenner is going to be like a 15-minute a game backup center for 15 years in the NBA. And when you're picking 28, that's probably worth it. Like that's kind of a hit at the 28th pick where Reynaud, like defensively, he moves better than Kalkbrenner. He is not nearly the rim protector. And so it's like, if you're not going to protect the rim, are you going to be able to switch? And I'm not sure he's going to be able to switch. So it's like, if you're a negative defending center, you got to be like Domantas Sabonis level offensively to like get on the court. And he's not going to be that. So I do think Reynaud defensively could be like a Kelly Olynyk, like a bigger Kelly Olynyk, where he like is always in the right place and always has his hands up and doesn't foul. And I think if he gets to that level, he will be a very good pick because I think his offense is going to translate, even if the shooting doesn't totally. Whereas Kalkbrenner, I just think the ceiling's really low unless he becomes Brook Lopez from three. But like Kalkbrenner might be the safest pick outside of like Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper. Like I truly believe he's just gonna be like, yeah, give him 12 minutes a game. He's gonna be fine.
It's like the perfect Zach Edey role, right? Like Kalkbrenner and Zach Edey. Like you don't want to take Zach Edey in the top 5 or top 10, whatever he was last year. But if you get him at 28, that's pretty nice. One of the guys you mentioned, Kalkbrenner's wingspan at 7'6". One of the names you sent us was Fleming, Rasheer Fleming, who has like a 7'5", 7'6" wingspan, 6'9". Dude, I hadn't seen this kid play. When I saw him, I was like, this is the guy that I want in this draft is Rasheer Fleming. Where is he? I don't even know. Where is he projected to go?
I just listened to Sam Vecini, who I think is the best in the biz when it comes to draft stuff. They did a mock draft. He went 30. So Sam just like totally doesn't believe in his defense. I am a huge Fleming guy. I've seen him at like 16 on mocks, and I've seen him at 28, 30, second round even. So I think nobody has absolutely any idea where he's going. All it takes is one team to love him. And I suspect there is a team out there and he won't get to us. But I think reasonably, we can expect that he might be there at 28. So like of the guys that we can reasonably expect to be at 28, Fleming's like by far with a bullet, my absolute number one. His shot prep and the way he like hops into the catch and rises and fires quick for a 6'9" guy is absurd. Like
a 6'9" guy with a 7'5" wingspan. Normally when your arms are that long, it's tougher to shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of, we mentioned earlier, we haven't had like a PJ Washington type, not saying it's a direct 1-to-1 comp, but like a 6'9" athletic guy, super long, like it kind of fits that same thought process anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And like he's a plus athlete, at least vertically and in straight lines. I think the problem with Fleming is he's kind of a man without a position defensively. He's a defensive playmaker, 3 stocks a game, but he fouls a ton. And like, I don't know if you can put him on another team's 4-man. And he's not really like a rim protector. He's kind of like a weak side guy who flies in for blocks. So if his ability to stay in front of like 2 through 4 is gonna, I think, determine his NBA fate. Because if he can't, I just like, then if you're a negative defender, like you got to be a star basically to play at the highest levels. But I just have no questions about his offense. If the shooting translate, this year was his first level of shooting, but he shot at 40% on a 44.8 3-point attempt rate, which is like crazy for a big man, essentially. Like half his shots were threes and he shot 40%. And if you go like the shot just looks really pretty coming off his hands. And he's a vertical athlete. So I think he'll be a rim runner who can also shoot threes. And there's not a lot of dudes out there who have both of those skills. So I just think he's really tantalizing. And I think he can do the top end stuff where he's just flying in transition. We hit him. He takes 2 dribbles and he's all of a sudden at the rim dunking. It's just the defensive side is very concerning, but that's why he's there at 28, right? If he was a plus defender, he'd go 5 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the Obi Toppin part of this is something I'm watching, or I'm just like, man, we do need kind of like, I mentioned the randomness that Baylor Shireman might bring. I think we just need a little bit more pop athletically as well, is something that this team is missing. So I love that idea of him, and to the point of it being all over. Like I know we've got in the chat here, they've got Fleming at 20th on Tankathon. He's not in the first round on the Ringer. I saw him mocked at 28 on CBS Sports, the Celtics. So it's a pretty wide range of where he's at. But even on the Ringer's board, I think he's in their top 20 something, he's in the top 20 or 30 like prospects, so he's highly thought of, but then also not, I don't know, so we'll see how it plays out, but I think that's going to be a name to think of. Before we let you go here, Spooney, just rapid fire, any other names that you think Celtics fans should be on the lookout for, or that you would like to see the Celtics take a chance at?
Chaz Lanier, he's a guard out of Tennessee, 6'5", 6'9" wingspan, elite 3-point shooter, and like probably an okay defender. When you're at 28, when you're at 32, role player shooter, I think he can be like a Sam Hauser level defensive player. And he can legitimately come off a pin down, come off flex, come off floppy action and make a 3. So I think he does basically nothing else at an NBA level offensively, but there's value in dudes who are movement shooters who won't kill you defensively. So I'd keep an eye out for him.
He can shoot with range too.
Yeah, dude. He's like, his jumper, it looks a little weird to me, but like it goes in, and like once he like gathers it and comes off the hand, it's beautiful. Walter Clayton Jr. is the fun one. He's very similar prospect to Pritchard, just crazy movement shooter, crazy off the dribble shooting.
This is the March Madness pick.
Yeah, I know. I do like truly believe in Clayton in a lot of ways. Just because I've saw the proof of concept work with Pritchard. So like
he's bigger than Pritchard.
Yeah, not by a lot, but he's a little bit bigger than Pritchard. So I think Clayton would be fun, but I think from like a needs perspective, he really does not fit the team because we already have him essentially in Pritchard. And then like a couple guys, can I give you a couple guys I would like to stay away from?
Yes.
Yeah,
please.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Will Riley out of Illinois, 6'8" with a 6'9" wingspan. I just hate his game. Everything he does is slow. I don't think he reads the game very well. He takes so many bad shots. So many bad shots. And I've seen him mocked to us at times over the last couple months. I would hate it. I don't think he's a good defender. I don't see it. I do not understand what people are seeing to have him in the first round. But nonetheless, he is very much in the first round. Who else did? Adu Thero. He's like the prototypical big, burly, long wing that should be an elite defender, but can't shoot. Like, that archetype, right?
Mhm.
I actually don't think his defense is elite. I think his off-ball defense is elite, but he can kind of get cooked on ball. And it's like, well, if you are not like Tony Allen level defensively and you shoot 25% from three, you just don't have a role in the NBA. So like, I'm just done with like the guys who totally can't shoot. Like, can we just not do that again? Sorry, Walshy and Brissett. Like, it's kind of that type of build a player. So those are the two guys I would kind of like to see us avoid. And then my last guy that we should absolutely take, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm wearing a WVU shirt right now, is Javon Small, who we worked out. Javon's my guy. He's Warrior. He's only 6'1". Yes, I get it. But I just love Javon. I watched like all of his games last year. He's the man. His size will probably limit his ability to actually be an NBA player, but man, it would be fun. WVU point guard. We got Joe. He's a WVU point guard. Come on, Brad, please do it for me. Do it. I know you're a big fan of the show, Brad.
I got one more question for you, Spoons. If there is one guy that you think that's projected beyond pick 20, let's say, just to start narrowing it down in your brain, that could end up being the best player in this draft, who would it be?
Okay. I think I do not really do a lot of scouting on the international guys, just because, like, I got a kid, I got a full-time job, like it's got to give somewhere. Like, I just naturally watch.
You've got more of a life than Sam Vecini does.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, Sam gets paid to do this. I do not.
That's true. That's true.
But like the one guy I've really scouted because he was like mocked around the Celtics is Hugo Gonzalez. And he's a 6'9" wing, like basically 7-foot wingspan, and he's like 220. Like he's 19 years old, really strong, really athletic, huge wingspan, and he's not shooting the ball well. But a lot of people buy his jumper, like they buy the mechanics and think he's going to be a plus shooter, and like the raw numbers are nothing. But from like a sort of a flashes perspective, like the dribble, the pass, the shoot, his ability, or not the shoot, but the dribbling, the passing, his ability to get downhill, his ability to read the game, how strong he is. He plays for Real Madrid, so he's playing against grown men who are professionals, and he has not looked overmatched athletically or physically, and from his ability to read the game, because he can read the game. I just think like that combo of size, athleticism, court processing on both ends, like if he learns to shoot, there is going to be like a really, really damn good player there. I just think like the chances of him learning to shoot, we've seen this before, right? It's like if this guy just learns to shoot, he's going to be an all-star. So Hugo is like that guy in this draft.
Yeah, some say he might be the next Bo Cruz. You never know. So take a shot on Hugo. We'll see what happens. Spooney, you came in here, you undersold yourself, you killed it, man. Appreciate all the work that you've been doing. I've been enjoying your breakdowns from first to the floor to take a look and get myself acclimated to what might happen here. Again, Wednesday night is round 1 of the draft, Thursday night round 2. So no real break here. NBA Finals Sunday, Game 7, and then right into the draft. And it feels like we are on the verge of a lot of movement about to happen. And it feels like this is going to be a summer that will keep the Celtics very busy. Spooney, we appreciate you joining us here, man. I know everyone knows that they can find you on First to the Floor, but anything else that you wanted to shout out, maybe any other pieces that you're working on with Celtics blog that you want to give some love to?
Yeah, I had to temporarily step away from Celtics blog because I taught a class at this past semester. Yeah, so it was cool. It was a lot of fun, but it just took so much time. I just didn't have time to keep the writing up. So I think I'm going to start getting back into writing this summer. But follow me on Twitter at WSpooney, and I post all my stuff on there. You'll see all the breakdowns for the prospects. I have 17 done for the Patreon. So if you're First to the Floor Patreon subscriber, there's 17 prospect breakdowns there. And we're just kind of rolling those out on the normal YouTube channel where we can. So keep an eye out for those. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun. Good talking to you boys. It's been a while.
Hell yeah. It's another Coffee and C's our guy, Spooney. You can check him out on First to the Floor. Everybody, go enjoy your weekend. Game 7, Sunday night. Should be a blast. Greg and I will have some more coverage for you next week, both talking about Game 7 as well as probably reacting to whatever may happen in what could be a chaotic week. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you guys supporting the show, and we will catch you all later. Peace.